Well, big thanks to ServiceNow for making this morning's conversation possible, and I'm very excited to welcome to the stage for a view from the top conversation, ServiceNow.org President and ServiceNow Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Vanessa Smith. Vanessa, welcome to Axios House. Good morning. So every conversation on the promenade at Davos this year is about AI. So let's start big picture on that with you. Give us your give us your Davos take on AI.
And maybe before we jump in, I can give just a quick overview of ServiceNow. And thank you, Axios House, for partnering with us to sponsor this event. So ServiceNow is a cloud-based enterprise AI platform that digitizes workflows across the enterprise, whether it's IT service management, customer service management, employee service management, and operations. We bring workflow, data, AI, and security together on a single pane of glass so enterprises can run their operations better, faster, and more efficiently. We're based in Santa Clara, California, 28,000 employees, and really right in on this AI race and the AI economy.
And before we jump into AI, I do want to ask, where do you fit into that role? Tell us a little bit about your role and the two hats that you wear.
Sure. So I have a dual role at ServiceNow. As you mentioned, I'm Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, so I cover areas of the business like government affairs and government relations, global impact and sustainability, and external affairs. And my dual hat, which I enjoy so much, is President of ServiceNow.org. That's bringing our AI platform at scale to organizations that are addressing the world's greatest challenges. So think nonprofits, NGOs, social entrepreneurs.
So we've got that big picture. Let's zero in on the topic of the day.
Yes. Okay, AI. I don't think anybody's had one conversation this week that hasn't permeated the talk track. So when I think about AI, first I want to say I think this is going to be bigger than any technology revolution that we've ever experienced as humanity. It might be even the biggest human revolution that we'll experience, bigger than the internet, bigger than mobile, bigger than cloud, bigger than social. And guess what? It's going to happen even faster than any of those revolutions have happened. What I see and what we're seeing is we expect maybe one of two outcomes. The optimistic or positive outcome of this AI revolution is this great human renaissance is upon us. That is a world with which we create an AI economy that's accessible to the entire globe, creating on-ramps to wealth creation across the global south and emerging economies. It's going to improve health, improve human longevity, create new jobs faster than they're being displaced. So that's the promise or the human renaissance path of AI. On the other side of that, I've got the realistic view of the risks of job displacement, the risks of bias being amplified at scale, et cetera. And what's going to make the difference on which of those two paths, that great human renaissance versus creating that great divide, is humans and humanity. And how do we put humans in the center of our design of AI?
Well, that just leads me to my next question. How do we do that? What is your tips or advice for folks in the room so we get the good outcome and avoid the challenges you just outlined?
Well, first, we think about the models, the LLMs. It's all about the LLMs. But what's as important, if not more important than the LLMs, is how we train the AI models. So some things about this AI revolution aren't dissimilar to other revolutions of the past. So number one, it's all about the data. Data is king. Garbage in, garbage out, just like it was during the days of analytics, for example. In addition, bias in, bias out. And the fact that that bias could be amplified so quickly really builds into answering your question of what can we do to, one, ensure that underrepresented groups are represented in these models and to decrease the bias. So first and foremost, it's how do we design and have data sets that are inclusive of the full population. Let's take us back to when heart disease was being studied in the 50s and 60s. We focused on men. Yet heart disease is the leading killer of women. So we need to, as we train these models, as we build full data sets, ensure that we include an inclusive data set that represents the full population.
This is such an interesting angle because so many of the conversations that I've had here, even at Axios House, are focused on the output. Like, what can we do with the AI? How are you, tell me about your journeys at Davos as you're spreading this message. Do you feel like a receptive crowd? Do you think folks are paying attention and understanding this input challenge, or is there a lot of work to do?
Well, I think here, more than any environment, honestly, my day job is corporate America. And going back to my comments about humanity, this is a real test of, are we going to trade off profitability quarter to quarter with, and thinking about the unintended consequences if we just pursue profits alone in terms of this AI economy. So Davos, this is the place where we're bringing corporations, governments, the social sector together to talk about a full 360 view of AI. So it has been a super receptive audience because that's what this population, kind of looking out at the room here, really represents. And I think we look at those trade-offs in terms of value creation through productivity, efficiency, gains, et cetera, that everyone's searching from a corporate perspective, having governments and folks who are more focused on the risk side, that balance is going to be key.
Well, then let's give the folks in the room a little bit of homework on this. What I love about these events is that the people who show up are the ones who care when they go back to their home countries, to their companies, to their governments. How can they be a force for good on this topic?
So a couple of things. I talked a little bit about the data sets that we're using to train. Second, having an inclusive seat at the table when not only you're training the models, but when you're designing the software. Proactively testing for bias in the models. So you've not just wait till it comes across organically. How are you proactively, before you're releasing them, testing for bias and creating transparency in terms of how the models work? The last thing that I'll say here, and this is a little bit of my hat of president of ServiceNow.org. As I mentioned, that's where we're bringing our software to nonprofits at scale. If you involve your customers or your consumers, whether you're B2C or B2B, into your model design, your model training, you're going to decrease bias. So because my customers are nonprofits who are serving the global population, some of the more marginalized populations, they are pushing us as ServiceNow to make sure that our models are trained with their needs in mind. For example, we work with a large faith-based organization that has tens of millions of members around the world. They are pushing us to ensure that our software can cover over 120 languages, that the AI can be used in areas where they certainly don't have 5G internet at scale at their fingertips every day, and really designing to be the most accessible set of AI possible. If we do this up front and not wait 2, 3, 10 years down the road, we're not going to have to deal with the cost of re-architecting the models, et cetera. So designing that from the beginning.
So let's spin this forward before we wrap up. 10 years from now, 5 years from now, as we look back, what will we regret if we don't get this right? And how will we know if we have gotten it right?
So down the road, I don't know if you said 10 years or 30 years.
All right, let's say 3 months at the speed this is going.
I think we'll know because we know we left the humans out of this. We will know because the economy will not be growing for everyone. We all are reading and we're experiencing today that trust gap. Trust is at its lowest point ever. This Edelman Trust Barometer Index that they produce every year, trust is at an all-time low. People are becoming more insular. So whether it's 3 months from now, 3 years from now, or 30 years from now, what we will regret is if we don't design AI to advance all of society. Because what's going to happen if we don't? Jobs are going to be displaced. Trust is going to continue to erode. And history tells us what happens when those divides widen.
And victory will look like that benefit spread out across all populations.
Exactly. And I'll say right now, what's all the hype? And I think it's a good hype. We moved from 2025 being all about AI experimentation and just do something. Don't sit on the sidelines. To 2026, companies and enterprises are expecting value, true business value. So we should have our definition of success of AI based on some of the traditional definitions of value, like productivity, like scale, et cetera. But I think what needs to be added is adoption, of course, or is everybody adopting it? But are we, through AI, not just creating more consumers, which is great, that drives the economy, but are we creating more beneficiaries of AI? If we include that in the model of value, I think that's when we win.
Great. That's awesome. At Axios, we lived in on one fun thing in Davos. I lived in on one AI thing. Before we get the hook here and pass the baton, tell me one cool way you use AI in your life.
Okay, how do I use AI in my life? I'm not going to use a business example, but I'm going to use an example of AI in fashion. I got invited to an event at UNGA in New York in September, this past September, called the Nat Gala, or the Nature Gala. And they wanted us to wear something sustainable and something that represented nature. I went to one of the models, I won't say which one, and I said, find me a sustainable fashion designer with a beautiful gala dress that can be available in my size in less than a week. It gave me multiple options, and then it checked the inventory at a local store, and I was able to go the next day, pick up the dress, and it was a hit.
We're going to have to look for pictures of that online. Vanessa,
yes, please do.
Thank you so much for being here. Huge thanks to ServiceNow for making this conversation possible.